Hey, and welcome to another episode of Talking Hyvä. And this time I'm being joined by Edwin Bos and Danny Verkade from Cream Internet. Hi, guys.
Hey,
Hey, how are
Hey,
you?
I am good actually. I'm excited because you're excited, we're excited about what's being built with Hyvä, and you recently launched something with Hyvä. And we've seen some things on social media that Edwin has been doing with Hyvä. Well, your first project went live, and that made me excited to talk to you about what your experiences are and how you're liking the whole the whole thing that we're doing with Hyvä, the kind of community that we're building, and how the product itself is working for your agency, and just talk a bit of current state of Magento in general.
Sounds good.
So yeah, guys, how did that go? When did we initially start talking about you joining Hyvä?
Well, internally, both me and Edwin both looked at the presentation you gave at Reacticon, as we were already discussing internally, like, all right, so what's up with the front end of Magento? How can we improve things? How can we make sure that our Lightspeed scores is higher? One obvious channel there would be to go through the PWA route. We did a couple of example projects which didn't come through like we wanted to, and we did a lot of R&D internally about how we could scale PWA internally for several clients. And yeah, we determined it was really hard to do that and manage that for the type of clients we have. And so you were spot on with that presentation. At that time, we both saw it independently and were like, well, we need to talk about it because maybe that is something that that we would want to look at and move forward with.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of solutions were those that you looked into? Did you look into the all three PWA solutions, so to say, or is this particularly the PWA Studio from Adobe that you used?
So the front-end team on our side did PWA Studio, a lot of R&D on that. I think Edwin can give you a little bit more background information on that.
Yeah, we also checked Vue Storefront, and at that time you had also Deity, Falcon, but that's, I think, now for BigCommerce or for another platform. But at that point, so that's like we started 2-3 years ago with that. But yeah, we looked into it in other platforms, and it didn't quite. Yeah, we really can't use it because like we are an agency, and it was not possible to scale it and reuse stuff like we now use with a default Magento with the fallback mechanism. And yeah, as an agency, yeah, it was really difficult to use that product at that point. So
that's extensibility then.
Yeah.
Okay. And you did finish some of those projects on a PWA in the end, or did you only look into the solutions? And
no, really only look into it. We made some example shops, just trying to make some functionality that we use in current shops, and migrated to a PWA Studio, for example. But yeah, it took a lot of time to get everything working, and yeah, and also perhaps we didn't really believe in it as a really good solution. So yeah. That's it.
That makes it kind of hard.
Yeah.
Then at some point I remember we had a call, I think during the beta period still, that you were interested in getting started with Hyvä. So you got the preview access, and how did that compare then, as in a sense that it's a new platform and a new front end, but still a lot of things are very similar to how you did things before. So how did you get started with Hyvä, and what were the things initially that you found enjoyable or easy, and what are the things that I don't know, you had to overcome, or in terms of learning curve?
So, that was also a consideration with choosing Hyvä as a teaming solution, because if you go the PWA route, your front end team needs to have different types of developers, more like JavaScript heavy than just a Magento front end. So that was one consideration where we needed to create or build a different team if you would do that full PWA thing, because you need a different developer type. So being so close to the Magento core, the current team could easily like move over with little effort to because they know the basics of Magento and the inner workings, of course. So that was one consideration that made it really easy to choose this solution, this front-end solution.
And how did that turn out then, in terms of getting up to speed, or did you spend a lot of time on testing and R&D before you actually started a project, or did you just get started, and how long did it take until you got productive?
Yeah, we are really familiar with it, because it's it is just a Magento team in that sense, because it uses XML as how the front end is built, with the same templates. The only difference is how the template is written and how the JavaScript is written. So the core concepts of Magento are still the same. So we were really fast up and running, the demo shop, so you have only the Hyvä team itself that was running instantly. So you install it and it just works. So that works well. So then we had to dig into Tailwind CSS and Alpine JS. I knew Alpine, I knew Tailwind. I didn't know Alpine JS. So and before I worked with Hyvä, I was not really in favor of Tailwind, because it was a really different way to write your CSS. But when I worked with it, I liked it more and more, and now I kind of love it.
So you're a convert.
Yeah, so that's I was kind of against it, because I liked how I wrote my CSS and I was really good at it. But yeah, you convert really fast. So that's one thing. And then Alpine, yes, that has not really a steep learning curve. I also learned React, and that took months before you know all the stuff. And with Alpine, yes, okay, then you already learned some other frameworks. This is not really a framework, but it's just JavaScript with some magic helpers. So it is just ES6. And that's the learning curve of this team is not that steep. And to explain it to the rest of the front-end team here at Cream, it was okay. So when can we use it? So they understand it immediately. And then only the hardest part when you start is understanding the config of Tailwind and how you execute it, and if you update it, what do you have to change to, if you because sometimes it breaks and you have to make some changes, but yeah, you can overcome that really easily. But yeah, to investigate that was perhaps the hardest part, I think. But it was really all familiar. So yeah, and it kind of reminds me of a little bit of the Magento 1, how you work with it, because it's way simpler HTML, way simpler JavaScript, and working with the view models kind of reminds me of the Mage
class.
the Mage class. And yeah, as a front-ender, it makes it similar. I also write backend code sometimes, and so I can make my way into how Magento works with all that stuff. But for other front-enders, it makes it easier to work with it. And yeah.
So
and to add to that, that was also our main concern internally before with reviewing the solutions, like what's the learning curve for all the different solutions. We were using the SAS stack, CSS stack. So yeah, that is a change for the team. So that was one of the concerns that we talked a lot about before making a final decision to move forward.
Mm-hmm. And you're not disappointed there?
I'm not, because the team is happy, and
yeah.
when the team is happy, we are all happy. So
yeah, we heard similar things, like the developers are so happy, and that makes the project managers so happy. Because
when we started, we do sprints of 1 week, and at the end of the week we do an evaluation. Are we going forward with this project with Hyvä? And every end of the week we said, yeah, we're going forward. We like this, and yeah, so we really never really look back. We didn't have, because we wanted to fall back. So we started with a smaller project with not that much to it. It's at the end you have a lot of functionality, but we have shops with way more functionality. And yeah, we started with a simple project, and yeah, we could make it way faster than we did before.
Like development cycle, right?
Yeah, like development and the project.
The shop itself, but also.
yeah. But at the end,
if you're saying before, so that's compared to Luma then. Luma okay.
And, we didn't make a team ourselves, but it was based on the for the SAS blank team. So that's in the end is based on the blank team of Magento, and kind of the same Luma, of course.
So in terms of increased development speed, do you have a concrete measurement of that? Like, do you have estimates that were normally based on Luma that you notice that you're staying within, or in what way did you, because you're saying it's going faster, do you have any indication how much faster, or is it too early to tell since it was only the first project?
Well, normally a first project would take like 30 to 40% more time than you estimated, because, well, you have the learning curve and things to get started on it. I think partly we already did quite some R&D before moving forward, so we were a little bit familiar with it. I don't know. Yeah, we should have those measurements, but they're not. I don't have them ready for you.
You didn't calculate it. Yeah.
No. I only know that we were within budget, so that's
and that's always nice.
But it's hard to tell, because it is a simpler shop, of course, but making the front end, like, for example, a product page with just, or a category page, to build that in the style that you want. That was faster. Of course, you have some time to make some modules compatible, or so.
That was the big unknown. Like, we're going to use a couple of third-party integrations. What's the compatibility, and how much time would it take in order to make it compatible if we need to?
How did that go?
Yeah, quite well. We used Elasticsearch, so there was already a module for it. So we made some pull requests to improve it, but that was already working quite well. And so we didn't have to do a lot about that one. But we also needed the Musty custom form module, and we made a compatibility module for that. So I think making the first initial compatibility module for that was like 4 hours to a day work. So that was not that much. But yeah, you can imagine that for larger modules with more functionality, that can take more time. But yeah, we also made we sent it to the Hyvä GitLab, so everybody can use the custom form module. So like other agencies also doing that for other modules. So yeah, I hope that more agencies will do that, so that we can get that also more up to speed.
Yeah, we're getting more and more traction there, and the compatibility module repository that we have. So we have a whole set of these compatibility modules. I'm explaining to listeners because you know this, but yeah. So we invite people, members of our community, to, as Edwin just said, they contributed a compatibility module, and more and more people doing that. And beside that, we as Hyvä team ourselves were picking out some top voted or top requested modules that we make compatible. So that's an ongoing effort, and yeah, we get more and more traction there. So that list of modules that are compatible is growing. And we also see some modules are, what you said, like 4 hours, sometimes even less if it's only CSS. If there's no JavaScript involved, it's really no work at all. It's basically the teaming that you would have done anyway if you were building a custom team. You usually already customize the look and feel, but the more JavaScript, the more difficult that it gets. There's some modules that have hundreds of lines of JavaScript, jQuery, and those are it's still possible to migrate those to Alpine.js and vanilla JavaScript, but it's a larger effort. I would almost say in those cases, if you really want to have it, you might as well include jQuery into your front end, which is a possibility, and then it would be less work to migrate that code to your front end. But you'll take a performance penalty because the jQuery library is quite big. But that's a trade-off, yeah.
And what about, are you actively reaching out to like the top third-party vendors of modules to see what their path forward is, and if they would like to support it out of the box, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so with some we do, and with some it's successful. With others, they're just very busy, in their words, with just working on what they already planned for the upcoming period, building new extensions and maintaining them. And I think a bit more traction is needed for the really big ones to see. We ask our members to keep asking them, like also put a request with them, so at least they have a feeling for what the demand is, which will only grow. For now, since the compatibility modules are quite lightweight, it's a small layer that sits between the original module and the Hyvä compatibility. It's very doable for us to maintain those. So we don't necessarily need them, but I'm quite hopeful that in the future they might bring out their modules as a Hyvä specific module as well, or with compatibility. Some did help us, like the Bolt checkout. We made that compatible together with Bolt. Red Champs is making modules compatible. Uyoma is a German extension provider. They're making their modules compatible. So more and more are getting into that space. We did some things with Mirasfit modules, and they looked into making things compatible, but they're not putting too much resources in that right now because they're just, well, they have a limited amount of resources that they can spend on development. So
they also have a roadmap to take care of. So
yeah, exactly. But the good thing is, the better the extensions are from these vendors, the easier it is to migrate them. Yeah, we can still use their base module and make them compatible with fairly little effort. So
yeah, look at the modules, like mostly 80% of the functionality is in the back office or is backend logic. So in most of the cases, the front end is not the biggest part. You still want to use that module because all the logic is already written.
Yeah, exactly. That's I think one of the biggest strengths that we have compared to most headless solutions. We can still leverage that tight coupling with the backend and the front end. We have the whole front end integration that we only need to slightly rewrite to make it work with Hyvä, instead of, well, the modern way is we have a GraphQL endpoint. Go build your functionality in the front end using that GraphQL endpoint. That's a lot more work. Yeah, we can actually use the plugin mechanism that Magento already offers, like the front-end accessible, just being able to install plugins, extensions. That's something that's still fairly new and unknown in all these headless systems. So yeah, I think the speed at which we're making modules compatible and the amount of modules that are already compatible is growing super fast.
Yeah, and it's great that every agency is doing their contributions to it. So everybody's sharing that. And the more modules that are compatible, it makes it easier to take on bigger projects because that unknown factor of those third-party vendor modules is just getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah. I would be very interested in seeing a demo of, or like a bit of a walkthrough of the project that you did, Edwin.
Yeah.
Cool.
I will share my screen so I can move this one. Yeah, so we made a shop. Yeah, it's a Dutch shop for Vollebrecht aanhangwagens. And you can purchase, how do you call it?
A trailer. You can
trailer.
purchase or rent a trailer.
Oh, you
Or a trailer. Yeah.
So, yeah, and we made this, of course, in Hyvä. The cool thing is that this is out of the box, a page speed core with like 98, 200. It depends a little bit on which page you are.
On desktop or on mobile?
Both. So that's quite cool. Because that's the thing. It is a small shop, so like I said before. So there is no Google Tag Manager in it, or a lot of tracking pixels or stuff like that.
Yeah, so no marketing things like where they load a lot of stuff in there, which slows down your page and the page speed score.
It's almost killing usually, right? The tag manager itself, even if you just use it to load analytics, you only
already an
analytics, but the tag manager is as big as a library as analytics itself is. So if that's the only thing you need, I still load only analytics and not the tag manager with it.
Yeah, so that because you only load like Alpine.js, that's like 10 to 15 KB, and not that much of other JavaScript. You have some inline templating JavaScript. So every decision that we made, like how can we gonna make, for example, the product slider? Do you want to load an external library? Normally we used Swiper.js for a slider, for example. We didn't do this here because you see what is changed. You can see, oh, now it's 15 KB is loaded extra, and now you see that directly in the PageSpeed core, where in other in Luma-based team, then it's 50 KB on top of 1 MB. So loaded. I can show you some stuff. That's we made some widgets for this for the homepage, so the end user can edit the homepage as wanted. We also made a cool thing that this part is loaded by GraphQL. That's already in the Hyvä theme. Is the product list already loaded but we made a widget of it, so you can now say in your widget, so I want only white trailers or black trailers, or trailers with a dimension of 130 by 165, for example. So that was kind of easy to do, so that was interesting. And if you see some pages, it's
you can see how fast it is, right? It immediately loads everything. So
there is no Ajax filtering in this, not yet. It's something we want to make perhaps for the Elasticsearch module, but there are some there needs a lot to be done before we can make that, I think. But you see already that it's blazing fast, so there is no rush to do that. If you see the different pages, that's also the client said, hey, this is fast. That's not really normally you see here. It can be faster or it is slow, or so. The client really sees it. Is really blown away about speed. So that's
already remarkable, right? I mean, you're hopeful if you're doing a classic Magento frontend, you're hopeful that the customer doesn't spend too much attention to how fast the frontend is, that they don't notice too much that it's not that quick, but having them realize that it's actually a really fast experience that's nice.
We are making we're working on a second and a third shop based on Hyvä. And the other shop that we are making, the client said, oh, that the changing of the quantity in the cart, that's slow, but it's really fast. But because the rest of the site is way faster.
Speed is always relative, right?
What we can,
and one of the interesting things of this shop is that it's not really a you do not place an order, but more like you would get a quote. We did use a checkout here, and actually internally in Magento it's an order. So it's more like the naming thing, and I think the checkout is really interesting as well.
We used the Hyvä React checkout in this project. Live demos. Wait a second. I'm not sure that. Okay. Yeah, so we used the first version of the React checkout. Only virtual products can be used there, and you only have a billing address. So for this project, it was a perfect fit because you didn't load too much. But yeah, for next projects, we also need shipping and payment. So I know that will be in the next React checkout version 1, I think. But for this project, it was really a perfect fit. And we added an additional message. So we had to write some GraphQL endpoints for that. And we also add an extra field for the company field, what kind of company you are. So that's something we changed. And but it was all in React, and it was doable. Yeah, it was not that really that it was not that hard to do.
The GraphQL stuff is also enjoyable when you dig into it a bit, right? Just extending endpoints, and the system is really powerful, and I like it, the fact that it's a small extra layer on top of the front end that we have, where we can do these things like these sliders on the homepage that are loaded through GraphQL, and this kind of stuff with the checkout, just adding a field and changing some things in those requests. It's how did you do that before you worked on this project, or was it something new you needed to get into?
Not that much. It's really the first real project where I use GraphQL. I worked with some React stuff and a little bit of GraphQL, but it was really just the simplest things that you can do, like just testing out some stuff. But this was the first real project with GraphQL, and also before we started this project, to learn some stuff, I made a autocomplete on the search, for example, with GraphQL, and that was it's fun to do because you can you only get the data you want, and it's only the document. I think the documentation of Magento can be better, or can give more examples how
to customize GraphQL in the backend.
How to customize, but also some examples how you get data, because you have just 2 or 3 sites, if you search on Google, that give you examples. Oh, if you want this, then you can just, there is no Stack Overflow stuff on it for it. So that's the downside at this point, because if you search how do I get this in Magento, you get so many hits. But for GraphQL, you have
not
to
that much.
dig into it yourself, and that's okay. But sometimes you just want a quick answer.
And I did notice that the documentation on devdocs.magento.com is also a little bit behind on the GraphQL stuff. So there are actually some fields which I thought were not present, but when I looked at the GraphQL definition within Magento, they're there, but the examples provided on the devdocs did not have those fields yet. So I would say just look at those definitions within Magento, and then you know exactly what you are able to use.
Using like a GraphQL debugger, like in Chrome, I use GraphQL Lee.
Yeah, then you also got that documentation,
and you have auto-completion. You can search the whole definition for you. So that works really well.
That makes a lot of sense for sure.
Yeah, I write the queries there always, and then copy it over to my code base. Remind me after the call, the error message that you saw when you first opened the checkout, there's been a fix for that. we fixed that a while back.
Okay.
So nothing to worry about there. That's an expired GraphQL token. And
yeah, I thought once before, but yeah.
Yeah, it's
it's
easily fixed.
Yeah, cool.
No worries. Cool. So, and can you? Yeah, you said the pitch speed score is high. Is that just the performance, or did you manage to keep all the also accessibility wise and what the other metrics, the four the best practices?
Yeah, the web vitals are all green, so that's I think like the cumulative layout shift is like just 0. So that's I think that's the biggest thing now. So that's we can't do that better. Yeah, we can. What I want with this shop, we still need to add WebP support. Because they're now all PNGs or JPEG, so that's where we can make the page smaller. That's almost the last thing we can do to make it faster. Of course, like for this an AJAX call, but there's not that much to do anymore to make it faster. So.
Yeah, that's great.
But that's also with the project that there's not that much in it, because if you have like Google Tag Manager and stuff like that, you can optimize things for that. So yeah, that also depends on the project, of course.
Yeah, the WebP support is it's really nice that this module from Yirio, our friend Jesse Reitsma, we made that compatible as well. So that should be plug and play to switch this to WebP.
Yeah.
And shout out to you to Yirio in general, since he's also doing the trainings. And I think some of you also attended the trainings from Jesse, right? The Hyvä trainings.
Yeah, for Frontenders participator. Yeah, that was an interesting training. The first day said, it's a little bit general, but the second day they're dive into it and learn a lot about the GraphQL and Alpine.js and I think.
Overall, I spoke to some people that did the training, and they all said it's very good value for especially to get started. So
I think it really helped them to get them up to speed and make that learning curve a little bit smaller or faster. More people are doing Hyvä theming now.
In the end, you have to get your hands dirty, so you have to make you have to do a project. So
and at some point you can
kickstart to get you into it.
And when you build more knowledge internally, at some point, I guess all training is you can do that internally, but especially to get started, probably if you're an agency and if you don't have like the time to do the internal R&D to begin with, then 2 half-day training might be a lot faster to just get into the material instead of diving it into yourself.
And it's also to hear it from somebody else. That's also a positive thing. Yeah. Otherwise, you only get knowledge from inside. So they have a lot of learned some stuff that we don't use normally, and now we can use some other stuff that so that's always a positive thing about it.
There's so much we still want to cover in terms of instruction material and everything. I think that the documentation is getting more and more complete, but I have the wish to make a lot of instructional videos just to get started, to show where you find things and the basics of how to build build your templates and get started with Alpine and everything. It also helps greatly that Alpine now has a proper documentation side. So there was already not so much to learn about Alpine because there's just 15 directives, maybe 15 tricks that it can do. And if you know those, the rest is just writing native JavaScript. But yeah, it's good that Alpine is also maturing a lot.
With version 3, you see that it's more going to direction like in functionality to like a React or a Vue, but without the virtual DOM.
Yeah.
So that's with the reactiveness of it.
Yeah. And so you now have 2 other projects running. That means that you, as a company, you've decided that you've in your standard toolbox, everyone enjoying enjoying the front end experience, or are the devs all convinced, or do you still have other systems that you would use for particular use cases? Like, do you think this for you as an agency still alternative front ends or that you would say, well, in this case we probably would still use Luma or use PWA as an alternative because of the size of a merchant or flexibility and functionality that you need?
Obviously, we need to support our legacy systems, well, legacy, the previous front end that we used, but all new projects going out will be Hyvä based. So we basically made the switch completely. After this project, we reviewed it again. We're like, all right, this is the path forward. This is looking like this is the future, and we need to work with this for new projects.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. Yeah, it's like the enthusiasm and like the level of innovation that we get because people are really going for this. Like, you feel that there's a momentum and people want to they want to grow this, and well, they see this as a future for their company and building Magento shops.
And the interesting thing is that within the organization, every layer is liking this product. Like the sales side, like, all right, I'm gonna be able to sell fast shops. That's nice. PM is exciting because they can deliver to the client what they want, and the front end team is excited as well because, well, there's a new tech stack, working better, working faster. The backend team didn't do much with Hyvä yet, but
not much change for them probably, which is how they like it best, right?
Yeah, I guess
because
so.
The backend is enjoyable. Magento's backend is like the strong point. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but
yeah, for sure.
That's how I feel.
Still things to improve there as well, but yeah, like you said, the whole architecture thing, it's pretty solid in for the backend team. So yeah, it works for them.
And then speaking of innovation, there was something that you showed off recently on Twitter, Edwin, where you were working on a page builder. Based on an open source product that already exists. Is that still something experimental, or is that moving forward still? Because it looked really impressiing from just the short video that you showed.
Yeah, it's still experimental. It was more, I had a question like, now we have Hyvä, can we make a page builder? I was working with normally we're working with widgets to make a full kind of, for example, a home page or a marketing page. But with yeah, the thing with widgets is they're not really flexible. And with a page builder, like with a page builder, you add so much extra JavaScript and so much extra CSS to your page, or like they always load, if you want a slider, you always load so much more libraries for that. So that was really difficult. Yeah, they're calling it. So I hope somebody is opening the door.
If you need to run out for a second, we're raw and uncut in this.
Yeah, give me
this format. So we
just
just do this.
She's coming upstairs again.
Yeah.
You out of breath?
Yeah, I thought there was somebody here, but it wasn't.
Was it the neighbors? Perfect. You were saying that most page builders add a lot of JavaScript to the front end. Yeah.
And also now with stack of Hyvä, you use Tailwind and you use Alpine.js. So yeah, you have to do something with that. Otherwise, yeah, you're loading so much extra extra libraries, or you still need jQuery for it. So it was just the question was, can I make something like that in the Magento back office? So the question is yes. It's really, at this point, the code is kind of dirty. It is just on top of all the UI components, just some JavaScript to change all that. So can it be used? Yes, but on a bigger scale, no, not yet. So that is something that I want to investigate more. Can we make this more stable, but also how can we use it yeah, really in the front end, and does it really work like expected? So I can give a small demo of it.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I think as a joint effort, we might even be able to, if you're interested to that, to look at it together, like how we can move it forward.
Yeah, that will be perfect. Yeah, so I used Grapes.js, so that's an editor, and you can build components for your editor. It's drag and drop, and you can also have tablet, mobile view, for example, but you can change everything. But the biggest thing is this part are the components itself. And the nice thing about it, you can also run JavaScript inside your editor. So that's the biggest advantage of this. So like you want 3 columns, for example. It's not, so you can, and then have like a paragraph in it, another paragraph in it. So I add this part, and you can add something in here. But so now you have some CSS and HTML, like it's like this. So you have some tailwind in it. Grid and grid equals 3, and then you have a div. So it can be all cleaned up, but so you only have this part. So and the cool thing here is that the tailwind is also generated on the fly. Now it's also have a normalized CSS in it, but that can be removed. So you can only still get the part that you want. So it will be like this part, the grid coterie and the grid. And that's the only thing that is generated at that point. That's with a just-in-time compilation, but then in the browser, I think from Beyond Code.
Yeah.
So that can be done. So that's cool. Configuration still need to be made. And you can also, for example, add some Alpine stuff in it. So this is really functional in your
nice.
editor.
Cool.
So you can just remove stuff. That didn't work quite how I expected, but I have to change this.
It's still experimental, right? So
experimental. So I know what to be changed, but didn't do it yet. But also, so these are small components and they are already functional, but you can also add really large components. And I think this is also the one that I added to the tweet, but you can also
it's a full template.
Add a full component, like if you use Tailwind UI or stuff like that, you just make a component out of it. It is really easy how you can do that. Just the HTML in some JavaScript, and then you can use it already here. So I'm also kind of investigating how can you make it as easy as possible to add components to your layout here. And the other thing that that you can do, for example, because we have on-the-fly generation of the CSS, we can also remove or add some extra classes to it. So if you like add, and this is also a live demo, so I think perhaps it's going wrong. So you can add an extra class to it, and then if you save all this, it should be loading here. It's not red yet, but the other things are loaded here. So this works. This should be red, but I don't know why it's not working at this point. But
it didn't persist, I think.
Yeah.
Experimental. But what
really experimental.
What I love about it, I mean, it might be dirty code, but you can always clean it up. But just the fact that this kind of innovation happens and stuff like this is being built, that's really exciting to me.
Like the philosophy of why Hyvä is made, I think that can be also put into something like a project to the like to improve content pages. So yeah,
awesome.
Which has always been one of the weaknesses of Magento. So
yeah, but I mean, then they bought a page builder that could.
And then they rebuilt it, and then they told us it would be a add-on module for open source, and that never came true. So
yeah, there's still hope. Who knows? Someday. I'm still hopeful. Meantime, I'm still asking them every quarter if it's time already.
Yeah, so perhaps if the page builder is also for open source,
you would see a lot more innovation there.
Yeah,
if they would have made it open source.
Then you can also make. I think this is also possible in there. I never worked with it, but you can perhaps also make it work there. So yeah, but in the meantime, this is really interesting to see if we can make it work.
This looks very promising. I think if you were able to build this just on the side, then if you put some resources to it, or we collaborate on it, we could build out this as a proper page builder, like fully functional. Super exciting. Yeah, guys, let's keep a bit of this workday left to round up the day. I want to thank you so much for sharing all of this and being part of the Hyvä revolution and being on the forefront of the innovation here and joining us so early and putting your trust in Hyvä. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward. If this was just the first project that you did, many good things still to come.
Yeah, the ones coming up will be a little bit more complex. So when that's live, we're happy to come here again and share that as well, of course.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'd really like that. So yeah, thanks again, and see you really soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. Bye.
Bye.